And good evening, everybody. I am Melanie Lawson with ABC 13. You probably figured that out with all the stuff behind me. But I'm also a longtime board member of Houston Ballet and just thrilled to be able to do this evening. This is the fifth in a series of very open and honest conversations being put on by Houston Ballet, really talking about um, BIPOC experiences here at Houston Ballet, and that really stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. So we all know that Houston Ballet has been diverse for many years. In fact, that's one of the things we are most proud of when it comes to the ballet. But there are definitely experiences, different experiences that many of the dancers have had. So as part of this series, we've had the first, we've had the nows, we've had the educators, and the male perspective. And tonight we're going to pull it all together and talk about so many different issues. But before I do anything else, I want to introduce to you a face that is no doubt very familiar if you've had anything to do with Houston Ballet, and that is native Houstonian Lauren Anderson. So if you want to give a quiet clap there, we love that. Lauren Anderson was with the ballet from 1983 to 2006. That is, as a dancer, she has continued on, performing leading roles in virtually all of the great classical ballets from Nutcracker to Don Quixote, and appearing across the world to critical acclaim, and in the process becoming one of Houston Ballet's most beloved stars, because she doesn't just dance, she also talks a lot, as you will find out tonight. She trained exclusively at Houston Ballet's Ben Stevenson Academy from the age of 7 years old, and she was promoted to soloist in 1987. In 1990, she really made history, becoming the very first African American to be promoted to principal dancer at Houston Ballet, and really one of the few across the country. And so she has inspired so many of the dancers that you will be talking to tonight, not only here in Houston, but all over the country. She is now a part of the Houston Ballet's Education and Community Engagement Program, where she conducts master classes at schools all across the area. And if you've never seen her perform as a teacher, it is really something to behold. So I just want to first of all say how proud we are to have Lauren Anderson tonight kind of leading this discussion. By the way, if you ever make it to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American Culture and History, or History and Culture, you can find a pair of her shoes there, her dancing shoes. So Lauren Anderson, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the rest of our dancers for tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Melanie, thank you so much for that. I was not expecting the entire bio to happen. She's my biggest fan. Okay. Yeah. But one thing I want to say, I'm really proud of this evening because I can say that honestly, out of all the dancers on this call, I have either shared the stage with them or taught them. So this is an amazing historic event. Normally you hear about the first or the one that's in your community that you get to talk to. Now we've got, I can say Houston Ballet has hired 17 Black dancers over the past 40 some odd years. So we're going to do a roll call. Everyone is not here with us tonight, but they're going to get mentioned, right? But the ones that are here are going to give a little wave or port a bras or whatever you need to do when I call your name. All right. So from 1976, we have Adrian Vincent James. Woohoo. All right. 1982, Sandra Organ. From 1983, me, Lauren Anderson. From 1988, Kiya Sturm. From 1993, they're not here, but Dion Allen and Carlos Acosta. We have Ayisha McMillan, 1996. Caleb Mitchell, 1998. And okay, let's turn over the millennium. And we have Cleopatra Williams, 2000. Chavo Killingsworth, 2003. He couldn't make it tonight. We have Catlin Addison, who is presently the first soloist at Ballet West. She couldn't be here tonight. That's 2007. We have Michael McGonigal, 2008. Rupert Edwards, who is actually on the staff of the Houston Ballet Academy, 2010. And we have soloists. Yes, we have soloist Harper Waters in our presence, 2011. We have Daniel Durrett, who is actually with Boston Ballet right now as an artist, 2015. We have our famous Naazir, one name, honey. He only needs one name, Naazir. Naazir Muhammad, he's in the corps of the Houston Ballet, 2017. And we have corps de ballet Kellen Hornbuckle, who is 2018. Now, I did say we have 17. Well, guess what, y'all? In 2021, as of 2021, it's just been announced, we will have our 18th Black dancer. His name is Neil Burks. So I'm so proud to be a part of this company. One of the few, the only company I know of that's a major ballet company that has hired 18 Black dancers. Okay, take it away, Melanie.
All right, I sure will. And thank you so much. I should mention, I wasn't expecting to be able to see the audience as well, but I can see so many of you there, and I'm glad to see you. Hi, Cece, how are you? Just one of those familiar faces and names associated with Houston Ballet. I want to kind of dive in and talk to the dancers, because the perception may be that your experience is just like everybody else's, but we know that is not necessarily the case. So let me ask, first of all, how young you were when you got interested in ballet, since we know there aren't necessarily ballet schools on every corner in the Black community. So if we can just kind of go around and everybody can tell me a little bit about how young they were and why they got interested. Lauren, we know you were 7. Anybody else want to jump in? Sandra.
Okay, yeah, I was 5. And there was an English woman who taught in my little hometown of Omaha, Nebraska. And I was the first girl born after 5 brothers, so my mother was thrilled.
Anybody else? Cleopatra?
I was 3. My mom noticed that I would try to get up and dance to music on commercials every time. And she said, I'm going to foster this and channel this, and found a place where my aunt was teaching art for me to go and take with kids that were much older than me.
Adrian?
Well, I started in the Workshop for Kids in the Arts when I was 15, which is the precursor to the school where I teach, the Duke Ellington School of the Arts. Mike Malone and Eugene Collins were actually the ballet teacher, and that's where I got inspired. But Arthur Mitchell was the person who really, in the magazines who I saw, that I wanted to be like. So I took a ballet road. So
15 means you were a senior citizen practically.
Practically, yes. Learning from all the girls. Thank you, ladies.
Caleb?
I started seriously training when I was 16 years old. I was in the Junior Olympic Nationals before that, and I made my transition into ballet. That's where I totally dedicated my life to ballet, was at the age of 16. And then like a year after that, I got accepted at SAB, but went to school, and then that's how my path just led.
All right. Ayisha?
I started dancing when I was 2 with creative movement in Oak Park, Illinois at the Academy of Movement and Music. And there was no turning back for me from then.
Wow, at 2, that's amazing. Daniel?
I started dancing when I was 5. I started in a little church ballet group thing, and then I transitioned into an outreach community school called the Uptown Arts in Cincinnati, and I never stopped.
All right, Harper?
I think ballet became serious when I realized that I had to put on tights and stop wearing the basketball shorts in ballet class. And that was around the time where I joined a competition dance studio that was actually right next to my mom's hair salon. So it was very convenient. And I had no idea that a career in dance would come from it. I don't think I knew what a career in dance meant. I just knew that I wanted to move and dance and be like Beyonce. And I somehow have achieved some format of that.
Yeah, Beyonce would be proud, I know.
Houston.
Yeah, exactly. Kiya? I think you're still muted.
I started at 5, Chicago, Illinois, Ruth Page Foundation. Started being a little girl in the Nutcracker. And then I never stopped.
And you were
So-
hooked after that, yeah. Naazir.
I started dancing when I was 6 years old, kind of similar to what Lauren does today. I started in an educational outreach program called the Brooklyn Ballet Elevate Program. So that's
Did
how
I
I
leave anybody? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
that's how I got into ballet. You know, it was an outreach program in my elementary school.
That's great. See, Lauren, that would have been one of your students there. Did I leave anybody out? Did I get everybody? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I started when I was 3 at Ballet Virginia International, and my mom actually danced professionally. She trained at Walnut Hill and went to Washington Ballet, and she put me in because I was very sassy and needed discipline. And here I am.
Sassy, I love that.
Yeah.
Before I move on, though, I want to ask a couple of the guys. You know, in the Black community, being a ballet dancer can't be an easy thing. How did you deal with that? And anybody who wants to jump in. Harper, you mentioned your basketball shorts.
You know, it was a balance, I think, for me, because I'm adopted and I grew up in New Hampshire, and so I was primarily the only Black person, and so it wasn't something that was extremely unconventional. I just took that as my reality. And at that time I was like, okay, I'm the only one. And I was having fun. The girls in the studio made it an environment that was incredibly welcoming. And that's where I felt like I could turn the volume on Harper to a 10, you know? And when I left, that's when I kind of was like, okay, maybe I need to turn it down. But we all have that when it's like at our youth is when we're most excited. I don't think that it really hit until I, you know, discovered dancers like Lauren and Sandra, and when I came to Houston Ballet and started learning about the history, when it was like, maybe I am a product of you know, this art form and how Eurocentric it is, and that things that I wasn't aware of were actually having an effect on me. So I think it was, you know, a younger thing. I was like, I'm fabulous, I'm fierce, I love this. But when I was really joining, you know, Houston Ballet, I was like, wow, there's a legacy and there's a history here, and I understand how important it is to be a Black dancer, and especially a male dancer.
All right. Now, Caleb, I know you and Adrian were both older when you got involved with dance. Did you get any hassles from some of the other guys?
Oh, sure. Yeah. But I was stronger than most of them. So, I mean.
I didn't get too many hassles, mainly because in the program that I started with, there were a lot of males, and so we didn't get the hassle of being called a sissy or anything that much, because there were other males around. So I didn't go through that. And then I went to New York where everything was free anyway, so.
Well, and I bet you all both were stronger, so that makes a big difference. Now, this is a question I'm going to just toss out, and anybody who wants to jump in, please do. How do you feel that the color of your skin has sort of shaped who you are as an artist or even as a teacher? How do you think coming into ballet as a person of color has really shaped who you are and how you dance? Come on, I know somebody's got an answer.
I was going to say, for me, I don't think that you originally step into this thinking about that's at the forefront of your mind, right? Obviously, we dance because we love it. And there's so much time and work and effort that goes into it. And I think that very often it may not be until something happens that you're like, oh, why did that happen? Why did they say that? That maybe you have to kind of go back and say, oh, maybe it is because of my skin. Or later on, after you stop dancing, you take a look back and you say, whoa, I really did something major there. But often, like when you're in the thick of things, I think it's really hard to really process what your skin color means and what you're doing. I just had to ask Lauren not too long ago, hey, Lauren, did you ever do Clara? Because I just assumed that she had. I just assumed it. And when she said, no, you're the only one that's done that, it had never hit me until 2018, maybe a couple of years ago, how big of a deal that was. So just to answer your question, it's not on the forefront of our minds. And sometimes it takes something to really, I think, bring it up, make us think about it, take pause.
Yeah. And I want to come back and ask you in a moment about some possible things that may have happened. But Ayisha, I see you just nodding your head. What has it been like for you? What's the experience been like?
Yeah, I'll echo so much of what Cleo said, because I think, first of all, as an artist, I just, number one, we bring all of who we are to dance. And I wouldn't know what it's like to not be a Black ballerina because being Black, I love being Black, and I love this very important part of my identity. And this is the only person I could be as an artist. And I love that. And so I think, like Cleo said, when we go to dance, we're dancing because sometimes it's because we have to. I had to dance like people had to breathe. I think when I told my mother that when I was like 11, she thought, oh boy, we're in trouble. She goes, but we have to do this. But it's true that it can be very hard in the thick of what we do to stop and reflect on the way that we're being received. And I don't know if this, I know that my parents worked very hard to instill in myself and my sister a very careful work ethic. We always knew that we had to work hard. They always taught us to believe we could do anything that we wanted to if we believed in ourselves. But so much so that we didn't, even when a narrative of, even when real obstacles would present themselves because of our skin color, because of being Black, it took time for us to even believe it. We didn't even believe when my parents tried to give us the talk about racism. My sister and I didn't even believe it at first. So we are the experiences have been there. But certainly in my heart, and I think what I heard Cleo saying too, in my heart, I was just there to dance.
Yeah. Now, Lauren, you have said that many times you were the only. So how has your skin color affected your career, do you think?
Well, I can say that I guess I got my first shock about my skin color when I was 9. Because there was a whole issue of me being a party child in the Nutcracker, right? So there was that, because I'd always been a rat, so I'd always been all covered up. And then I was a clown, and I was like this white face with this little afro and a big old hat. So it just, I was pretty much covered up. Then there was going to be an issue about that. So I guess that went away. But the whole thing that was a little bit shocking was the Sugar Plum Fairy. When the plum turned and to hear the audience go was a little bit off-putting, but it didn't matter because, I had to step out the plum and not fall down. I just didn't want to slip on the dry ice. That's all I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about dancing. It was more about that. And there was some other issues I found out later, because now you can't unknow what you know, right? So when I was dancing, there's some things I didn't know. But when I found out that, there was sometimes people coming from other places didn't want to put me in the corps because of how dark I was, because it would break the lines. I mean, hearing that, it doesn't feel good. But the cool thing that happened when they went away, I was put there anyway. So there's that. So the support of the company really helps. It's just that it does hurt. I mean, you walk around in this skin. Like, I have a 17-year-old son, and talking with him about a lot of stuff that's going on, he goes, well, Mom, sometimes that's just how it is, and we just have to deal with it. And like that hurts to hear your kids say that. Right? Me going through it is one thing, but so I think back, it's a lot of rear view mirror stuff that went on during the career, but I can say I was protected from a lot. I really think that the dancers, I can't speak for all the dancers, but I think that the staff, the administration protected us from as much as they could, I think.
Anybody else want to jump in here?
Like
Yeah, go ahead.
So I grew up in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn. It was a little bit different for me growing up. You know, when I first started ballet, I was around all Black children because, you know, that was the goal, to get us, you know, the urban kids into the arts. But then when I started advancing and I went to the JKO school, I guess that was like my first shock of me being a Black dancer and how it was different. I remember we were auditioning to be party kids, and Shakir and my twin brother was also a dancer, had gotten to be party kids, and they lined all of us up and dragged us to the one Black man that was in the room, who was Calvin, who was in the corps at the time, who's actually a principal dancer now. And the whole room was laughing, like everybody was laughing. And I remember being like, oh, right, like this is the only guy who could be my father. So that was like the first time I realized, like, oh, I am a Black kid. And like, I don't look like the rest of these children, and I couldn't be anyone else's son but Calvin's.
I'm thinking about a situation back when Lauren was apprentice, and here we go with the nutcracker again. Okay, so I'm the first African-American there in the company, and here's this little beautiful Black girl in the school. So immediately I'm thinking in Nutcracker that she's going to be my daughter. But one thing about Ben Stevenson, and she says about the administration and stuff, I don't think he saw color. I think he saw quality of dancer. And so Lauren went, I think, with John Roselle or somebody else, and I had my own party children. And I always looked at that event, I said, now that's a beautiful human spirit that, you know, that doesn't really see color like that and wants an opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, you were never my father in the Nutcracker.
Never.
Ever.
Ever. Never, ever,
You look
ever.
like blonde people.
Yes,
Fine. I don't have anything against blonde people, but I'm just saying he's with blonde people. Yeah.
No, that's pretty funny. This kind of dovetails off of that. Did you ever feel typecast, or like only certain roles were available to you? Sandra, I see you kind of shaking your head.
Well, I'm thinking about, you know, any Spanish dancer, any whore, any prostitute, all of
Lord.
roles, all of those loose women, usually one of them, or a mad woman. But, you know, it wasn't always that way. I mean, I got other parts too. I got to be Mirta, and I got to be the fairy godmother and that kind of thing. So, but if there was a role that required a person of swarthy character, I was usually cast in that. But I don't know if it was more because I was just a pretty good actress. So
yeah,
I think about these two posters my parents got me when they went to, well, the first one they got in back in the 70s, it got me this poster of the Spanish dancer, you know, like they got in Spain, and had, you know, they could put out a whole, like a playbill, and they put your name on the bottom of it. And I thought, you know what, that was just prophetic. Any Spanish dancer ever was, I was in it. So.
That says a lot, though. You're right about what a great actress you are. Anybody else? Kiya, did I see you want to say something, or?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sandra and I were always the Spanish girls.
Mm-hmm.
We were always doing something. I was a crone, I think, even, which is awful, but I was a crone.
Yeah.
And Ben Stevenson did not see color. I mean, he saw color, let's face it, he saw color, but he didn't care. He was too arrogant to have anyone tell him that they couldn't put Lauren in a position that she was meant to do. So we were like, you know, that was the one great thing about Ben Stevenson is he was just so, he was Ben Stevenson.
Yeah.
So who are you to tell me how to direct and how to choreograph for my girl, Lauren? So.
Well, and you all have been very fortunate to have two artistic directors who really did reach out and try to make sure that it was a very diverse crowd. Now, anybody else want to jump in on this, or shall I keep going? Okay, Harper.
I was just going to share that sentiment in saying that, you know, being cast here, I think that Ben set a precedent for that. And I've never felt the roles that I did, you know, uncomfortable in that. But I wanted to just quickly comment, because I feel like this group of dancers maybe has shared this, is that when we are younger students and we're going for some summer intensives, for some reason, Alvin Ailey is always the one that you have to go towards. And I mean, I want to say that those dancers at Alvin Ailey are some of the most strong, powerful, beautiful bodies. My dad, he might be on this call, I don't even know, I think he is. You know, he used to be a college professor at the University of New Hampshire, and that was one of the first performances he ever took me to, was Ailey too. And so I vividly remember them. But what's taken away from us, I feel like, is the power of choice. I would have loved to choose to go to Ailey myself, or choose to pursue a career in classical ballet, or choose this. But my teachers, who I trusted with their guidance, were already pigeonholing me to one type of dance because of the color of my skin. And I think that that is a type casting that occurs to all of us. Or, you know, you have to be contemporary, you know, you have to be the modern person. And that's not fair. And that is, you know, well-intended ignorance, but ignorance nonetheless. So that's another dialogue that takes place.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Daniel, did you want to say something?
I completely agree with Harper about the Alvin Ailey thing. Here in Boston Ballet, we have a mentor program called Color Our Future. And I was recently speaking to one of my mentees. I have two girls. And we were speaking about how all the teachers growing up are just always geared towards Alvin Ailey. And she was telling me that she is, I haven't seen her dance because of, you know, COVID and like Zoom and whatnot, but she's telling me that she's more of a classical dancer, but then her teachers back at home in Chicago are like, you should audition for Alvin Ailey. So that kind of just like brought back like that whole conversation I had with my girl like 2 weeks ago about the whole like typecast or Alvin Ailey thing. I think it's not ridiculous, but it's uncomfortable in a sense, because you want to feel like you have the choice to pick where your career is headed, not your teachers telling you, you need to go there because you're Black and you should be good at contemporary. Like if I want to do an arabesque, plie passe, pirouette turn, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Good for you, Daniel. I love that. You know, I'm noticing that there are some younger people on this call. I see a couple of little girls here. And I want to talk about the first time you saw someone who looked like you on the stage. And Lauren, you've told a great story over the years. I don't know if you want to share it, but for all of you, when was the first time that you just said, click, I'm going to do that, and I see somebody who looks like me doing it?
I'll say that I was very fortunate in growing up to always have Black women around me in the studio. So from my earliest studio, I was very fortunate in Oak Park, and then I went on to study with Homer Bryant, and he's was one of the founding members of Dance Theater of Harlem, and he founded his own school, and his former wife coached me. I was very, my mom used to say, honey, there's a ballet star following you. She meant like an angel, you know, but and then of course, it can't be understated how important it was to be able to land at Houston and have Lauren there. Not just as an example, but as a mentor, as a friend, and at times an intervention. You know, we mentioned before about casting, and when there was a time when I ran up on a casting difficulty and with a visiting choreographer, and I really didn't know what to do, and that I could turn to her and call her up and, when she was in the middle of eating popcorn and said, honey, this is what you got to do. This is, I feel very, very fortunate, but really every step of the way in my training and my career, I didn't have to be the only one. And I even like Virginia Johnson, who's now the artistic director of Dance Theater of Harlem. So even when there was not a professional Black ballerina that I could turn to, I had cut out her picture from Ebony magazine and I taped it in my caboodle. So I was there 10 years old. Virginia Johnson was always there with me in my caboodle. So I've been very fortunate that the message could keep being reinforced, that there was no, I could be that.
Wow. Lauren, I can see you getting all teary-eyed.
Okay. Yeah, I know. This whole thing makes me teary-eyed. Okay, so I was 9 years old and my mother took me to see a performance. I didn't know who I was seeing. I was just going to Jones Hall with my mom. And man, that first Black chick ran across that stage. I went, I was on the edge of my seat. And then another one and another one. I went to go see Dance Theater of Harlem and it was like the best thing that ever happened because I was ready to quit ballet. And then that chick popped up in that red tutu as a Firebird. And I went, I want to be her because she was amazing. I mean, amazing. The fierceness, but the softness, but the fear. Even the queen that walks down at the end, Lorraine Graves, walked forward. And the way she just walked forward, just the step in that big gold cape. Do you know we did Firebird and I hated that ballet. I was a Firebird, I hated that ballet. But it wasn't because the ballet was horrible. I had plantar fasciitis, life happens, stuff. It wasn't that thing that I thought it was, but by then we'd done some other things. But I think that you don't know you haven't seen a Black dancer until you see one, right? I didn't know that I hadn't seen.
I'll add on to what you're saying.
Yeah, I was just about to say yes. Great.
So Lorraine Graves, she practically raised me. She was one of my first teachers at Ballet Virginia. So she was kind of my role model. And then I remember she took me to see Dance Theater of Harlem perform and I'd seen Ailey perform. And for some reason, I really don't know why, but the male solo of Wade in the Water stuck with me. I don't know why. My parents were like, you're never gonna do that. It's a man's thing. But regardless, that stuck with me. And I feel like that's my first memorable moment. And then, Lorraine Graves and then Lauren being at Houston. So kind of similar to Ayisha's story.
Well, I'd like to say that mine was my brother. He is a dancer. And so he was doing stuff that I thought that I could do better. And I did. And, but he ended up being with Dance Theater of Harlem as a principal. And I didn't have like a Black female dancer that I looked at. The person that I looked at who had a body like mine was Cynthia Gregory from American Ballet Theater. She had these thick legs, they were strong, and she didn't have like the beautiful point. She didn't have the beautiful lines, but she was strong, she was sturdy. She could jump, she can emote. She was just everything that I thought that was very similar to me, and then when my brother got into all these things that he got into, then that's when I saw my first Black dancer, really. And it was very late because in Chicago, ballet is a very white community. There's not a lot of Black dancers when I, back in 79, okay, I'm aging myself. But, I didn't have anybody but my brother. And I thought that was so cool that this kid, big fro, couldn't get the mascara off from the last performance, was doing all these fabulous things. And I wanted to be just like him. So.
Well, does that mean then you are aware of what a role model you are for other kids, including some of the little girls and boys who are on this call tonight? I mean, are you aware as you're dancing that there are kids looking at you the same way you looked at other dancers?
Well, I wasn't in it I was started at 5, but in '89, I said, I'm out. I want to have babies. you know, so that would be great. But yeah, I mean, I'm just so happy that there are people of color that are in this predominantly white kind of community, and they're showing a force. And I'm telling you, we can do anything. We really can. We just need forums like this. We need more people to do outreach like Lauren's doing. And me coming to Houston from Chicago, I didn't even know where Houston was. I thought it was like a bunch of ranchers. And then when I saw Sandy and Lauren, I was like, okay, I think I could stay here for a little bit, you know. But I mean, for Houston to be, to set the precedent for all these other places is pretty phenomenal.
It really is.
Can I answer that other question that you?
Sure, absolutely.
I think for me, you know, going from hardcore gymnastics into another discipline like ballet, you're already motivated. But I think the person that influenced me and motivated me more was an American. Actually, he's from France. His name is Eric Vuan, and he danced with the Paris Opera and also with Maurice Béjart for quite some time. He was, you know, a Black dancer that could do ballet very, very well, but also contemporary very well too. So I remember one time watching him and Sylvie Guillaume, they were doing a pas de deux on Bravo. And it was like years ago, it was a documentary, I think it was on Maurice Béjart. And just seeing this dancer that came from France that looked exactly like me, but could do contemporary as well as triple soda basques, and cleanly done, and beautiful legs and feet, strong body. Yeah, I think that was more of a push and more of a motivation. But it's interesting because that dancer who should have been a star in the Paris Opera never became one. And it was because of his color.
Yeah, that's really something. Well, for some of the dancers that are still on the stage now, do you feel that sense of responsibility? Like, I've got to really throw down because I know there's some kids out there who are watching me. Naazir, you want to take that one on?
You know, yeah, in a way. It's not like at the front of my brain, I'm not like, oh my God, I need to be good for those kids out there. That's more so like, so I can feel good. But I do have to remind myself that I am, you know, someone that a little kid is looking up to, just like I was once a little kid. And when I was at Brooklyn Ballet and I saw D'Artagnan Reed for the first time, and he had a huge afro, and you know, he was real jacked and had these ripped up jeans and did Le Corsair. That was the first time I was like, oh my God, like, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. You know, every time I go out there, I'm always wondering, like, is there a little boy out there, a little Black kid, or, you know, that's, you know, watching me do Prince and thinking that he can do it too. And I think that holds a special place, you know, for myself and, you know, Harper and Kellen, who can inspire the next generation.
Yeah, and I think I had never thought of, I don't know, because I guess I'm very new to the company. It's only my third, fourth season. So I kind of I'm just doing my best in the core, you know. And I didn't really think anyone would like realize me being there, I guess, until I had gotten surgery. So I was out and I was walking from the Wortham after watching a show, and a Black family came up to me and they were like, oh my gosh, you're injured. Like, we came to see you. My whole family came. And I was like, oh, like I don't know. I had never even thought that, you know, I'm just thinking about steps. I don't even know.
That must have made you feel fantastic though.
Yeah. Just like what Naazir was saying. So definitely makes you think differently.
Yeah. While we're talking about it, does it help to have a network now of Black dancers that you can talk to, not just at Houston Ballet, but in general? I mean, do you feel like you've sort of reached a critical mass?
Fortunately for everybody, there's the International Association of Blacks in Dance. And that brings all the people together, whether you're modern, jazz, tap, African, it brings the people of color together. And I suggest that if you're not a member, that you go out and join the International Associations of Blacks in Dance, IABD.
Melanie, I'll weigh in on this. I think that, of course, social media and the internet and of course has brought us together, because I remember back in the day, Virginia Johnson was a ballerina I looked up to for a very long time. I'm gonna be honest with you. So Sandra Organ comes to the ballet, and I looked up to her, but she don't know, but I look up to her, right? Because she was right there in my face. But Virginia Johnson was like that one person from afar, and I was like, wow, you know. And I did an interview, and she wrote me a letter. I guess it was in the paper or whatever. Back in the day, some of you kids don't know this, but back in the day, you do an interview, someone would write it, then they put it in the magazine a month later. Then it would be circled around a month later after that. You don't just pick up your phone and see it as it happens like you do now. So that happened, and she wrote a letter to me at the ballet, at Houston Ballet, and I couldn't believe I got a letter from Virginia Johnson. I was floored. And so fast forward, Misty Copeland and Michaela the Prince do the same interview, because this comes up every 10 to 15 years. This keeps coming up, this whole issue. And so I called JKO school because I didn't want it to be weird. And I wanted to talk to her teacher. And I talked to Michaela and told her, well, this is my experience, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And now, of course, we just text. Same with Misty Copeland, same with that child, Catelyn Addison, same with, you know, so I think this, and Kiya and I got back together because of some post that I saw. Somebody posted a picture of all of us on some bus tour or something. I mean, it's just, I think and it's always through like Facebook messaging that I catch up with somebody in some weird way. And so that's connected us, but it's nice to see it in real time, because you see how many Black dancers there really are.
Yeah.
And you see how many little Black kids are taking ballet. And you see, and it doesn't matter, even Kiya, though you say you've only took it for however many years, some little kid in the Houston Ballet Academy looked up to you because you were that flower in the corn, right? So, I mean, it's kind of important. I remember when I was younger, when we would go to Miller Theater, we do Miller Theater a lot when I was young in the corn. Or we do, Ben would throw me on for the Sugar Plum Fairy and the student matinee. And he said, I'm throwing you on because little kids need to see you, because it's a student matinee. And that's when a lot of these Black kids actually get to come to the ballet. I was like, what? And that really makes a difference, because I do that now. And so I think every time we get on stage, we work, like someone said in the beginning, we work so hard. Ballet is hard. We have to work so hard, and it's selfish. We have to be selfish. We have to get in the studio and bang our bodies to make it look how it needs to look, right? And so we're representing every time we go out there, but I don't think that's at the forefront of anybody's mind, is what color they are. It's like, I don't want to fall over. I want to get these steps, and I want it to be really good. But really and truly in the back of our minds, it's there because we wear the skin that we're in, right? The way we have to act is, you know, I'm telling my kid something totally different walking in a store with his little toy than somebody else is telling their kid walking to the store with their little toy. Do we bring that to the stage? Yes, because that's our experience. But we represent every time we go out there, but you never know who you're going to affect and when you're going to affect them. Because the Lord have mercy knows, I got grandbabies coming up to me and saying, my grandmama was in the green room with you when you did the Sugar Plum Fairy. So you never know who you're going to affect.
Well, and I remember when I interviewed you and Misty Copeland, and she said she was so influenced by you. So I remember that very well. You know, people of color love to dance. We all know that in our communities, but ballet is often unreachable. It's too formal for them. How does the world of dance kind of reach across that gulf, do you think? And how do you sort of individually feel as though you're reaching? And more importantly, as we're now in that moment where people of color are being recognized in a different sort of way, do you feel as though the conversations are being had all of the time? I know that's a lot to throw at you, but pick any part of it and you can have it. Anybody?
Well, I'd just like to jump in on that. This is Sandra. You know, after I left the ballet, I had a dance company, and I did a lot of work and choreography that reached across the majority minority community of Houston, and did an annual Black History Month concert. And I decided, you know, I really wanted to bridge that gap in our community where we weren't having as many people of color in the audiences. And so we started to cultivate that audience. And I felt like I was doing a service for the ballet. In the meantime, as the ballet started to really have outreach and everything like that, because they actually had the money to do that. With my dance company, I didn't so much, but I felt like that was some of the trench work that I felt called to do, to have represent stories and heroines and heroes of my culture in the Black community, and have that on stage and something relevant that they could go back to school and say, I learned about Frederick Douglass today. I haven't read about it in my history book, but that's part of our American history. So I feel like, you know, using ballet to tell those stories and to reach into those communities with something relevant to offer them that looks like them, as well as talks about who they are, was a way that I could bridge that. But I was also going to say, you know, I think we have to, I had a lot of work, and we still have a lot of work to do with our own Black community to accept ballet, because it has been seen as a Eurocentric kind of elitist form. And people like, you know, Misty are great, have been great for the art form, because she's like a publicist. She's like performing with Prince,
Right.
you know, making it cool to be a ballerina, which is really awesome. That's an awesome thing that she's been doing. So I do feel like sometimes we have a hard time with our own community. And and then I also feel like being a part of the academic community a little bit too at UT for a few years, there's also the idea that, you know, we've always made ballet, the Western Eurocentric is the basis of all dance.
Mhm.
And there's kind of a movement against that, you know? And so just because it's, you know, it's not how people all started dancing. That's how we started dancing in Europe, you know, with the French. So, but that it still it crosses all boundaries now, and it's still a universal art form. Doesn't mean that's what we come out of the womb doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are just a couple of things I was thinking about when you mentioned that.
No, great thoughts. Kellen, did I see you raise your hand? Oh, no. Okay.
I'll add a little bit to that, because Sandra, I was so much of what you said is resonating over here. Yet I think that, first of all, I think that if we even just look at American ballet and consider how influenced it has been by Black dance, by Black choreographers. That's another thing I really want to lift Sandra up about, is that I had you not only as an example as a gorgeous dancer, but as a choreographer, you know, at Houston Ballet, and choreographing for us at the Academy and in the company. But ballet, I feel that institutionally, ballet, ballet needs to recognize the resource that the art form has already had in Black artists and in Black dance, Black choreographers, Black set designers. I think that this separation that we see, this alienation that we see, I think is institutionalized. Mm-hmm. I think that people dance and people have been dancing, and whether it's ballet or whether it's been something else, is not as material as we can get caught up on. So I look forward to ballet opening up. I look forward to seeing ballet really reflect on its roots, especially its American roots that have already been so influenced. I think that I love this conversation. I love being invited to this conversation, because perhaps what is hardest is the thought, or this pervasive image that we haven't been here. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Mr. Adrian Vincent James, I was so delighted to meet you for the first time a few years ago at IABP. But we've been here. And I love this.
That's a really, really good point. I have some great questions here. We don't have that much more time, I'm sorry to say, so I wanted to throw in some of the questions that came from the audience. And one is really on point. It says ballet is an expensive interest, as we all know. Do you think that's why so many people of color don't go into ballet? Not just that perhaps it seems a bit inaccessible, but it's frankly pretty expensive. Now, yeah, Naazir.
I, for the most part, think that they don't, or at least, you know, where I'm from, they're not as so into it. It's because they don't know anyone that looks like them that does it. And that was the biggest change for me. Representation matters, you know? So we see LeBron James and Kobe, so they all want to play basketball. We see Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, so they want to go play football. We see Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa, so they want to play baseball, but they don't see classical male ballet dancers of color. So I think if we got that to appeal to the masses, I think it would change. Because when I go back home and, you know, I try to get my friends to come out to the ballet with me, if I'll try to get them to go see ABT or New York City Ballet, they kind of like, whatever. But then like, they'll go with me. They'll be like, you know what, that wasn't that bad. I bet you that would change if they saw someone from their neighborhood doing it like I am. I've changed all my friends' idea about ballet because they all thought, it's feminine. But then they see me and they know I'm not that way. I'm a very masculine guy. I think they're a bit shy on how, you know, people will identify them if they were to pick it up. I don't think it's because they think it's corny or they don't like it. I think they're afraid of the stigma that stands behind, you know, men, especially Black men from the hood doing it. I think if we were able to change that, you know, psychosomatic thing in our brains, I think people wouldn't, you know, feel the way they do about it.
I absolutely agree, Naazir. My brother was tormented by everyone. We live in the inner city of Chicago, South Side, yay. Tormented and called every name. And when he got to be about 18, I took one of our friends from the hood and they saw my brother's legs and they saw his chest and they saw him pick up a woman with one hand above his head. And they said, damn, can I do that? And I said, no, you can't. But you know what? This is what a man looks like. He listens to classical music. He dances with women. He does everything you do. He plays basketball. He plays football, but he also does this. And so people have exactly that if I like it, I'm this. And I can't be this because nobody will accept me if I'm this. And so until we change that mindset. Introduction to classical music. I mean, I got married and my husband never listened to classical music. Now he listens to classical music because I introduced it to him, you know, and he saw my brother dance for the first time and he's like blown away, never went to a ballet before. So it's just, you know, field trips from schools need to go to a ballet, just, you know.
I want to say though, money is an issue, you know.
Oh, it's a huge issue, yeah.
To be very honest, growing up in First Ward, Houston, my church and my neighborhood, they would give money for me to send me to San Antonio to go to Joffrey, to send me to New York to go to Joffrey's New York, for point shoes that I wore way past I should have worn, which probably wasn't good for my feet, definitely wasn't good for my feet. So I'd love to see there to be an abundance of scholarships for Black students. I love what Houston Ballet is doing as far as the outreach. You know, I got into City Ballet Houston's Nutcracker the same way. They did an inner city Nutcracker, Clara on the PBS channel. But it was the community helping me. And so I think that our ballet companies need to understand that they are going to have to help these Black students to finance that, until they're able to make their own money, just like kids trying to go to college, scholarships, because this is our art form. Hopefully this will be their profession one day. So yes, it is an issue for many people.
I was thinking the same thing because especially for girls with point shoes, like what you were saying, like point shoes and tights, and it's a lot more expensive than, you can go through a pair of flats. I feel like a lot longer than you can for point shoes. And that's a great idea, thinking about scholarships and stuff.
Well, I'm so glad you answered that question, because that was another one that somebody had asked, how to bring the mountain to Muhammad in many cases instead of the other way around. But I have one or two more before we're going to wrap it up. Do you know of any organizations, and somebody asked, as allies, what can you do to help dancers of color, people of color in the ballet and in other forms of dance? What can allies do?
Okay, well, I got to weigh in.
Okay.
I got to weigh in on this.
Okay.
There are some, I can say first, and I meant to do this in the beginning, but I'm going to do it now because this is a perfect segue. The Links Incorporated of Houston chapter of the Links has been so generous. And I want to thank them because actually they help make this evening possible. So thank you, Links Houston chapter. They absolutely, with purpose, looked for Black students to help supplement give them a scholarship basically for their tuition, or help with shoes, or help with dance clothes. I mean, I think there are companies that have decided, and we are very fortunate at Houston Ballet to be able to give scholarships to students in underserved communities to have classes in the Houston Ballet Academy. But that's because people have donated money. There are companies that have initiatives of helping arts organizations specifically for education of students. And it's huge because, I never forget the first opera I went to wasn't because my parents went to the opera. I went because it was a student matinee and I got to see the opera, right? And a lot of people get introduced to the ballet, like Cleo said, through student matinees and stuff. But it's because of generous donations from organizations or people that give money personally, right? Board members and whatever, guild members or whatever the initiatives are. And that helps supplement the funds because we're actually able to go into schools where it's free to the schools. And that doesn't happen everywhere. It's expensive. It is expensive. Dance clothes are expensive, right? If you're trying to pay a light bill, and what am I going to send my child to ballet or pay the light bill? I'm going to keep the lights on, right? So there are companies, thank goodness, and corporations and foundations that give money. And that there just needs to be more. We need more. We need more.
I just was going to say about, I think the biggest call to action that allies can do is just to continue to learn and to push yourselves to educate. And, I was really impressed with the Houston Ballet when the Black Lives Matter movement happened this summer. We really united as a company, the dancers and with our staff, and we had conversations. And speaking to your point earlier about a network, I feel like that moment, I connected with Kellen and Naazir on a lot deeper level than I maybe would have. And, we're different ranks, we do different parts that we intersect at different times, but I feel their openness and my openness with the company themselves. We found that our dancers, it wasn't that they weren't wanting to say anything, they just were scared to say the wrong thing. And there's this, I wanted to urge them to watch the movies, read the articles, read the books, watch the ballets, learn about these people, because the more you educate yourself, the more confidence you will have in identifying racism, identifying implicit bias, confronting it, speaking up for yourself. I mean, I have more confidence in identifying it for myself, you know? Like there were so many times when I joined the company and people would touch my hair and I was like, why are you touching my hair? You know, like, it's like, what is this? And I didn't think that was an issue. I thought I was the problem, you know? And now it's like, no. You're the problem, because I learned about that. And so if you want to be an ally, if you care about people in your life who are BIPOC, push yourself to read a book, read an article a day, you know, something like that. I just think that is the most impactful thing that you could do.
That's beautiful. And I would add also, examine whose narrative is getting in. Whose narrative are you telling? So I couldn't say it better, Harper. Yeah, an ally will listen, an ally will listen critically, an ally will pay attention. Whose narrative is here and whose narrative is missing.
You're muted. I can't hear.
Melanie, you're muted.
Yes.
She knows she's muted. She's trying to get them to unmute her.
I think she's telling you to take over, Lauren.
Oh, okay.
Hey, I read the lips. Wait, can I just say something? I want to talk about the family. Sorry. When we were talking about the community a while back, and I just wanted to say how, and I don't know if this is what we might say like a Black thing. Sometimes when you're in a situation where you're few in the sea, you see someone that looks like you and you kind of give that elbow bump, that fist bump. And I want to say that there have been so many situations where I might not know these people one-on-one, but I feel at home, I feel seen, and I feel safe and recognized. And I had an experience with Debbie Allen in Washington where we went, Houston Ballet went to dance there. Her company was there. And she was like an auntie who said, come here, come watch my company. I know Lauren, it was a family. And that's what I feel with every single one of the people here. And I feel like that's what I hear in a lot of their stories. And so I'm grateful for this family. I'm grateful for this community. And I'm grateful that we brought this together and we made it to where other people could see it. So thank you.
And absolutely. I'm so glad that Houston Ballet has wanted to have this conversation. And I'm sure it has helped open some doors for you. Yeah, I figured out how to unmute it. One last real quick question.
Something to that, just quickly. I think it was really important to me, and I think other people who came into the company after me as well, to see people in the organization who are Black. You know, it just wasn't about being on stage. It's the people who are stage hands, people who are, putting your costume on you, the people who were running the PR or who were, working on the staff. And I just remember this one little lady who had a little purple hat, and I can't think of her name, but she was the only Black person I know. I cannot think of her name, and I have a picture with her. But she was the only touchstone I had in terms of that, besides Lauren, and I think it was really important that throughout the organization and on the board and that you had people of color who were kind of coming around you and offering you some community. And I think the churches did that. I mean, I had a lot of family in Houston that did that. But anyway, I think that's a really important thing too that schools think about, is make sure they have a community to be in.
No, that's a perfect question. I'm going to make this the last one, and maybe one or two of you can answer this. Advice that you give to kids to indicate that they might be interested in this. What do you say to them? Caleb, Adrian, anybody want to jump in?
Always be your best, be your authentic self. Have your guidance on your spiritual, keep your spiritual self together. And believe in yourself, because remember, we are strong people. We come from a long way, and we got a long way to go. So just keep on believing in yourself, and don't let anybody stop you. Don't let anybody. Understand that you are a child of God, and he put you here for a purpose, and your purpose is to light the world.
I piggyback on that too. Just, I mean, do what you're passionate about. Don't listen to anybody. Just go ahead and go for broke. It's life's more fun that way instead of listening to other people.
Well, there's so many topics we could have covered. We didn't even get into the whole body issue, which I know is something that has plagued many African-American dancers over the years. But this was such a fantastic conversation. As we mentioned before, it's number 5 in the series, Breaking Boundaries. And you can watch all of them, I believe, Lauren, on you all's website, on Houston Ballet's website. But this was a fantastic conversation. We just scratched the surface. I'm just honored to have been a part of it. So I want to toss it back to the one and only Miss Lauren Anderson.
So first I want to say, dancers, has been an honor to have worked with all of you in the capacity that I've had the opportunity from 1976 all the way to what year we're in? 221. And Melanie Lawson, thank you so much for always being an awesome supporter of the arts in Houston and an advocate for children having access to the arts. Thank you so much. Houston Ballet, keep on keeping on and keep on being an innovator and an educator of what the future is in store, right? I always say this, and I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say it. It don't matter what we do, y'all. Everyone's mixing. We're gonna all end up beige. It's gonna all be a shade of beige. Good night, y'all.
Good night. Thanks to Houston Ballet, and thanks to all of you all. It was great. And thanks to our audience. We really appreciate having you guys here. Good night.